Thank you, all of you who are on camera. I see some will be on camera soon. Atlanta, Georgia, Los Angeles, Berkshires, Massachusetts, Sandy Spring, Maryland, Nevada City. Let's see, where else? And welcome, everyone. Welcome. We are going to dive right in. Cape Town, DFW, good day. You're in New York. Prayers to what's going on in New York right now. Yeah, I'm in Texas. So, good morning from Wisconsin. All right, in the chat. So, I know that we have someone from Wales here, South Africa here. Yes, there we go, right on time. And so we're going to South Africa. Wonderful. We have a couple from South Africa. So I'm just going to dive in. Put in the chat if this is your first time here, put a 1 in the chat. And the reason I use the word participant is we are not lurkers, right? Even if you're an observant soul and you love to witness the world and take in all the things, you're still participating. And I know that if you were invited here by someone, it is because they consider you someone who aligns as a driven, inspiring, visionary, authentic leader. So they went, you're up to something in the world. You're a woman or a man who supports women, and you are here to impact the globe in a positive way. And you're one of those odd people that actually spend your spare time geeking out about that. Like, how do I be better, do better, release, open, let go, close the doors, open new doors, right? So that I can be all that I'm called to be. And we know that by doing that, we give permission to everyone else to be who they're called to be. And we believe in a world that when we're all in the center of our calling, or at least grappling toward that, that it makes the world a better place, right? Because we have these divine assignments, and that first assignment is right here, right? The first main assignment is the body, the soul, the identity you were assigned to, that your spirit got to claim. And then from that overflow, we figure out who we are, and what we're here to experience. And so from that, I just want to say thank you for being the bright light that you are. Thank you. And I welcome you into this space. We're also a group that believes that there's an old proverb, and I've heard that it came out of Africa actually, that if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. But I believe in today's time, if you want to go fast and you want to go far, you go together. Yes, because we share resources and we collapse time. You have spent your life learning things, creating relationships, mastering things. I've spent my time doing that. And when we align on a vision, we collapse time because we bring our resources to the table. So we think collaboration is queen. And I love Christine Kern. We have a collection of TV shows as well that we're in collaboration with. But she said, I was tired of seeing women toss good wine on each other. I was tired of that kind of media, right? So that's what's in the media a lot. And isn't that good, Karen? She was like, you're meant to drink that and enjoy each other's company. Enough of the drama. I love that. So here we are. My name is Adora Crystal Evans. I'm the founder of the Diva Network. I'm also a host on several of our TV shows. I head up Dining Divas Texas, and the Diva Network was the place where we said, how can we take more women with us? How can we open more doors? How do we connect more women to each other? And therefore cause a global movement of driven, inspiring, visionary, authentic sisters partying their way in the good ways around the world in celebration and bringing our businesses and visions to life. So This is our virtual Tuesday meeting where we bring you one of our who's, which means it's an extraordinary human being that we have access to. And we're saying, here, sisters, brothers, we want to open this door. And so Sam Lehoko is a media maven in South Africa. So she's, model, host, is on regularly on radio that goes out to millions of people. Her parents and her lineage, she'll tell you more about, but a lineage of politicians that stood for rights that her country now is blessed by, and she's had her own journey with that. But we're bringing her today to talk about our story. Like, you each have a story, right? Whether it's your pleasure or your pain, it's your message and ministry, right? And so how do you take your story? My faith is rooted in Christ, even though it's pretty, I believe in energy and metaphysics and meditation, all these other things. And there's a scripture that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, right? When someone hears the 4-minute miles possible, then all these people, so when your story is shared in your unique way, it has this frequency and this vibration that has the ability to break chains, remove scales, liberate, open doors. And that could just be for creative expression. That could just be, I have the right to paint if I want to. I have the right to dance if I want to. Or it could mean something, being freedom from addictions, from relationships, from old identity that aren't who you're really called to be. But it is powerful and profound. And so Sam is a story whisperer and is here today to help you kind of unlock your own story as someone who regularly does that on media herself. And so Sam, thank you so much for being with us today and bringing your light and love to our community.
Adora, thank you so much. Just before I begin, I'm on the screen, I'm on my laptop, and I am speaking through a different device. But hopefully everybody can hear me and I'm coming through clearly. I'm going to share the screen very soon and bring up a presentation. But Adora, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored to be here. I'm grateful to be in this space. And just to share with everybody, when Adora asked me to speak, I was really excited. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, I was riddled with insecurity. And, I was thinking about all sorts of inadequacies. And I was like, oh, can I do this? Can I not do this? And at the end of the day, we've got to get on with it. And there's an element of willingness and selflessness and all of this. But I think it's normal to be afraid. I think it's normal to have certain fears. I think, it's an opportunity to move from fear to faith, and have a little bit of courage, right? So, before I derail, I'd love to get straight into it. And I think what's so important is that, I pay homage to Jennifer, who entitled the session, "Your Story, Your Power," and I'm going to go with that. I think there's a beautiful story in itself behind storytelling. So there'll be lots of themes and lots of personal stories that I'll share with you today. And I really applaud everybody on this platform to look for the similarities and not the differences, and to also, do a bit of introspection and reflection, right? And I find that doing a daily inventory before bed is such a beautiful tool and such a wonderful task. So I'm going to bring up my presentation, and hopefully everybody can see this on the screen. I'm going to see if I can make it bigger or smaller. Let's see. All right, that seems to be okay. If I can just get a thumbs up from 1 or 2 of you, that would be cool. All right. So what I really want to do is, see how our stories can become our strength and how we can use this in almost every aspect of our life, right? And what I've noticed about even my story is that, it's been such an incredible healing experience for me, right? Through sharing my story, reflecting on my journey, I've been able to make sense of a lot of what has happened in my life today. I've been able to focus more on my growth. I've been able to look at things from a very different perspective, right? And I've used my story to connect with hundreds of people around the world, right? Not just, through what I do, whether it's broadcasting or not, but in many areas of my life, right? And I think when we share our truth, we share our story, we move away from shame, we move away from guilt, we move away from isolation, and we find spaces where we can really connect and see that actually there are so many things that bring us together. There are so many similarities, so many things that we can relate to, right? So, how's about we see how we can unlock the transformative potential of our own stories, whatever that might be, right? So, what I want to do is take it back in time a little bit, and if we can think about the history of storytelling, there is an incredible museum in South Africa, in Cape Town to be specific, called the Iziko Museum. And it's so incredible how they've been able to preserve the history of this country. Now, when you walk into that museum, you feel the history, you embody the history of this country. And I'm talking about, centuries ago. We're looking at, beautiful cave paintings, engravings. We're looking at the people of the San. We're looking at how farmers preserved that culture and that language, right? We look at how, stories from around the world, right, have passed on from generation to generation, and how even in those stories we can teach others, we can pass information on. And I think about my grandparents, I think about my parents, I think about my stories, I think about my children, and how they themselves are able to relive and revisit and retell the stories from generations ago. So there is a history behind it. And I think, over the years, we've been able to share stories in many different ways. I did drama when I was in school, and I was able to share the stories of other people on stage. And I was really able to embody the feeling and emotion and story that, came from whichever individual. So what I want to share with you before I get into my own personal story is the elements of that story, that it's about truth, it's about power. In a lot of the work that I've done and in my, journey up until this point, I've realized that, people actually connect with you through your story more than what's on your CV. And maybe this doesn't reign true with everyone, but for majority of the work that I've done, people have hired me, people have booked me, people have collaborated with me because of how I am, not what I am. They've done so because of the person that I am, and who I choose to be today. So actually, perhaps, it's through conversation, it's through networking, it's through getting to know the other person where we feel, hey, maybe our vision and our missions are aligned. And perhaps we should collaborate because we share the same values and spiritual principles. And, we share the same vision, right? And if you look on the screen, of course, there's science behind storytelling. We think of listening to people's stories, and we realize that, oh, not only have my has my brain been engaged, but there are emotions and feelings, right? Resonating with this. So neuro and they're all linked to language and emotions, like I said, and all these beautiful sensory experiences. And for me, the most incredible thing and the silver lining through all of this, despite my nerves before the session, is that I don't have to be an expert on anything. All I have to do is come here and share my story. And that's the best part, right? I don't have to polish my story. I don't have to refine my story. I can simply, if I'm brave enough and have enough courage to do so, just tell it like it is and put my stuff out there, right? So beyond the science, beyond, the more technical stuff, it's really about what's inside. It's about opening our hearts before we open our minds. So what I want to try and do is use my personal story to connect with all of you. And I've listed 18 themes of my story. Of course, I could probably spend hours sharing my personal story, but I'm going to try and do it in a couple of minutes. And again, let's try and look for the similarities and not the differences, right? So we're going back in time to, my upbringing, and I had a really good upbringing. I'm very blessed and I'm truly grateful for the upbringing that I had. But the environment that I was raised in was all about politics and educating oneself. And as Adora mentioned, I have two parents who were struggle stalwarts. They fought for freedom. They were very involved in politics. They were both incarcerated. My parents are very well traveled. They spent a lot of time at Harvard. They studied in Manchester. And this was all to prepare themselves for what was to happen in this country. If you know anything about the history of my country and democracy and apartheid, my parents were sort of in the center of what was happening, right? And because of what they were doing, I felt a deep sense of abandonment. I thought, well, you know, if you're so busy out there doing things for everybody else, what about me? So my perception is that I'm abandoned and I have every right to feel resentment. So I resented my parents for a very long time, and I, lacked a sense of, nurturing, and I couldn't really understand what love really meant. And I went around and I lived my life for many years telling everybody that I'm super independent, right? I'm going to do my own thing and make my own decisions and do as I please. But the perspective that I have today is I was not independent. I was secretive. I hid the things that I did, the people that I spent time with. I hid everything from my friends and family to a point where I had two beautiful sons, and even that was a secret. And everybody only knew about my pregnancy the day I gave birth, right? So I lived my life, very secretive. And I think about how I robbed my family of incredible moments. I robbed my parents of a beautiful moment to say, hey, you're going to be a grandfather, you're going to be a grandmother. I robbed my family of the opportunity or ability to support me in that journey, right? And years later, to cut the long story short, I started my career in radio and television, and I was quite successful. And my view is that, all I needed was enough talent. My perspective then was that talent would get me far. But the perspective I have today is that talent is not enough. You can have all the talent in the world and be the best radio broadcaster or the best television presenter or the best CEO, but you can still be unreliable. You can still be nasty. You can still be belligerent. You can still be unkind. You can still be dishonest to your colleagues. You can still be manipulative. So then, what is the purpose of talent, and how far is talent really going to get you? In my career, and very early on in my career, I was introduced to drugs and alcohol. And uh, addiction ruled my life for a very, very long time. And in this chaos and in the use of drugs and alcohol, I found everybody else to blame for my behavior. And I even went as far as blaming this industry to say, you glamorized drugs, you glamorized alcohol, you glamorized all these things that are supposedly bad. So why should I say no when you make it look good? So, as much as now it's not a justification for what I did, at the time it made sense that I don't need to take accountability for what I do. I don't need to take responsibility for my actions, and I don't need to worry about the consequences and how they affect other people. I lost my father many years ago, and not even the passing of my father could get me clean. And thank goodness that 11 months later, I was brought to my knees and I received the beautiful gift of desperation, where there was actually no other option but to surrender. There was no other option but to get out of this circle of denial, where actually I do have a problem. And my life is consumed by one thing and one thing only. I think it's important to share that people who struggle with addiction, it's not the problem, it's actually the solution to all of their problems, the solution to things that they choose not to face. So I went to treatment and I spent a couple of months in rehab, and not because I had nowhere to go, but because I was petrified to leave. And I couldn't fathom living life on life's terms without the use of drugs and alcohol. But I'm here today, still clean, and I haven't picked up since I left rehab. The beginning of my journey in recovery is a love story, but it's not a love story that ended in marriage. It's a love story that ended with one person going to prison and another person staying clean. And the person that stayed clean was me, right? And I think about my journey and I think about how, for most of my life and in my story, I was very good at pointing fingers and very good at not looking at myself. So, in a situation, in a romance, a so called romance, where this could have ended differently, right? We had another person who chose a different path, another person who wanted me to lie and commit perjury and be deceitful and, go against my newfound spiritual principles and values. And the bottom line is that this person was sent to prison because I told the truth. In fact, not because I told the truth, but because they chose a different path, right? And my journey and the lesson in all of this is that, yes, there are moments in life where we find ourselves at a crossroads where we're sort of presented with many different choices, right? But it is the decision that is ultimately the most important and will define the rest of our journey and the rest of our path. So, what it meant was that if I still have my recovery, if I still have my life, if I still choose life, I can focus on my career. And my story ends with this newfound sense of equilibrium, where I know that for many years, life was just about one thing, and today it is about many things. That we all sit here with incredible careers. We sit here with our health intact. We sit here with some money in the bank. We sit here with beautiful, profound, deep connections, right? And relationships is part of my story because I've had to spend years repairing the damage that I've caused in many of my relationships. Part of my story includes having to make amends to my children, to my mother, to my father who is no more. Part of my journey includes that I've had to make amends to myself and society. Part of my journey includes a list of priorities where today I serve others. No longer will I be the selfish, self absorbed, selfish individual that I once was all those years ago. And the irony in my story is that the very same parents that I resented for all those years, I am exactly like them. I am as selfless as what they were all those years ago, even until today. And that's my story. That's the epiphany that I've realized, right? It might not have taken 5 minutes. It might have taken 15, 20 years to get to this point, but I'm here, right? And there's this beautiful sense of spirituality that I have here, that there is a reason why we're all here today, despite some of the decisions that we've made. Absolutely. There has to be a power greater than myself if I'm here today. There is evidence in my story that I am yet to fulfill a greater purpose. There is evidence in my story that I shouldn't have ended my life all those years ago, right? So I've taken many of these themes from a tool called the Life Wheel, which I studied, and it speaks to all these different areas of our lives which deserve equal attention. That yes, as women and men, as beings, we are many things. Yes, we have a career. Yes, we have relationships. Yes, we are parents, right? But we also have what we call a beautiful self image. And part of my story is that I didn't have one many years ago. I had no self respect. I didn't love myself. I didn't believe in my capabilities. And I didn't think I had potential. If anything, my story is that I thought drugs and alcohol would make me the best radio and television presenter on this earth. But guess what? I don't actually need those things today. So the story ends with me accepting and making the admission that, yes, I'm an addict. Yes, I'm an alcoholic. Yes, that is a part of me, but it doesn't define who I am today. Right. So, as I said earlier, there are many things that I can share about my story, and those are just, a few themes that I thought I'd share with the collective. And I hope, my decision to get vulnerable and my decision to get honest with you, has created some sort of connection, and a bit of compassion here and there, and maybe the ability to do the same yourself. But I looked at, the truths to reclaiming one's power, and I look at all the people I've interviewed in my career, and I've looked at how for a long time my you know story was that nobody understands me, nobody gets me, nobody, no, I'm just the victim, right? And here I am sitting and saying, well, maybe it's because I haven't taken the time to understand other people. Maybe it was all about me, that I not for 1 second stopped to ask somebody else, what happened to you? You know? Tell me about you. I want to get to know you, right? And the most basic thing that I can say is that it's not complicated, right? Your story is your story, and nobody can take that away from you. And your story is enough. You're enough, right? Whatever that story looks like. And when we talk about our story, it's not just the good stuff, right? When I got clean, I had to look at the bad things only, right? I first had to look at that stuff because all I wanted to do is say, well, I'm talented and I've got this, that, and the other, and I'm a mom, and, but it wasn't about that. My journey was to look at my dishonesty and my manipulation and my unkindness, right? Those were the things that I had to look at. So when we come into recovery, and sometimes when we go through trials and tribulations, we often feel that we're broken people. But somebody once said to me that if you think you're so broken, think of a broken glass, and it's the only thing where the light can shine through those cracks. So we learn to appreciate our flaws and our defects, but we also learn to really, really, really accept our assets as well. And what I've noticed, especially in the spaces that I find myself in, is that everybody's voice is needed and everybody's voice matters. And this is why, recovery has taught me that every single space I find myself in, let me be mindful, let me be clear that I need to acknowledge the space that I find myself in. Because as people, we coexist, right? And when I got clean, people said they see me, they hear me, they acknowledge me, and they love me. So why not do the same? Because they taught me that that's how we live, where we see each other and we hear each other and we're equal, right? And we create an atmosphere for sharing. We create an atmosphere for recovery. We create an atmosphere for success. We create an atmosphere for collaboration, right? And in the most darkest, most painful, most upsetting and abusive moments in my life, that's actually where I've grown the most. I've turned my pain into purpose. And I've looked at people like my mother, a woman who has been deeply traumatized by some of the things that have happened in this country. But yet, she finds herself in leadership positions where she chooses to say, when we lead from the inside. When we find ourselves in leadership positions, we lead from within. Because if I, as a leader, can get vulnerable, if I, as a leader, can open up, if I, as a leader, can share the most intricate, most sensitive, most painful parts of myself, so can you. And this is how we connect, right? So, if anything, I think a lot of what our stories are really shaped by are, these spiritual principles and values, right? Where if you had heard my story, you'd hear that there are elements of faith in there, right? There are elements of hope. There are elements of love, forgiveness. I spoke about the amends that I had to make. There is an element of humility where I recognize my limitations in that I cannot do this without you. I cannot stay clean without the help of other people. I cannot succeed without others, the mentors, the forefathers, the ancestors, the peers that I have, right? I can't do it. And humility is not saying I'm the best at what I do. Humility is saying I am trying my best. I'm trying my best and I'm here because of you, right? And half of the time, my problem was is that I was too entitled. I spent my life being incredibly entitled, and I thought that, hang on, if I could just take the credit for everybody else, I'll be okay, right? So we recognize that there is a power greater than ourselves. We recognize the humility in saying, I need help. We recognize the humility in saying, I can't do this alone. And that's why I love what we do here at the Diva Network, is because it is a space for collaboration and togetherness and to humble ourselves enough to say, I can do this with you, right? I can't do it on my own. Gratitude is incredibly important and a big part of my journey today, because there are things in life that I've taken for granted. You know, Today there is no such thing as big or small. Today, everything is big for me. Big, having a roof over my head. Big, having my children in my life. Big, waking up. As long as there is breath, there is life. Big, I have an opportunity to speak to all of you. Huge, right? I have a partner today who is loving and kind and authentic and driven and disciplined and fun and spontaneous, right? But I can only really appreciate that, right? If I'm present, but also if I acknowledge how I can be better in this relationship, right? Not the same controlling, abusive, nasty, entitled partner that I was before, but if I can humble myself and say, how can I learn from you? How can I be better? Can you forgive me for those times when I was unkind? Can you forgive me for those moments where I was intolerant? Can you forgive me when I burnt the toast, right? I didn't make dinner on time. Can you do that? Right? And in every story, there is a redemption, right? Where we have this beautiful transformation through atonement and renewal. My mom, speaks about unleashing one's potential, and she often speaks about the beautiful butterfly, right? And how once the butterfly was not a butterfly, but what it took to get to that point. So, all of these beautiful spiritual principles and values help us become more authentic and get more vulnerable with our stories, right? I have, slides about why your story matters. And I'm going to sift through some of these slides. But I think, if anything, the most important thing that I had mentioned is the authenticity aspect. A couple of weeks ago, in fact, it might have been months ago, a good friend of mine sent me a video of somebody in recovery. I think he's got about 15 years of clean time. And he had made a statement and said, you know what? All CEOs should do what recovering addicts do, right? Because one, they're authentic. Two, they don't control everything. They let go of the idea that they can control everything. And number three, they have the ability to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And maybe that's what leaders should embody. Maybe leaders should try and be a little bit more authentic, in the way they present themselves. Maybe they should think about connecting with their people. Maybe they should let go of the outcome and just have a bit of faith. Maybe what they should do is say, you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? And I think when we foster this beautiful sense of authenticity, we do create trust. We do create and build credibility. We do connect more, right? So um, there's some messages here about shaping our story, and I think I've mentioned quite a bit of this already. Where even in the way I shared, I mentioned, pivotal experiences in my life with my parents as a mother, with addiction and my career, and to recognize that my journey has not been linear, right? So there are ways in how we shape our story, especially when we present it to the world, right? As much as we want to be authentic, as much as we want to be honest, how do we evoke that emotion? How do we create a story that is descriptive and colorful and honest and beautiful and memorable? And what I've noticed, even in my line of work, is that sharing my story is not just for me, it's for others. Because as I share my story and I share about the most painful experiences, it gives others the courage to do the same. We frame our personal challenges, we see that, wow, just by what I've shared, big or small, I've been able to touch one person. And that whole concept of leading within is exactly what this is all about, right? So, what I want to do for purposes of time is I want to just move over to one or two slides at the end before I conclude. But if I take it back to my story, there are many things that I have hidden from the world. There are many things that I've avoided. There are many things that I didn't have enough courage to face. There are many things that I had reservations about. And I said, if I lose a loved one, or I get retrenched from a job, or, I go through a breakup, I'm going to use. And guess what? I haven't. And all of those things have happened, right? And I've gotten to this point because even in those moments, what saved me was my story. What saved me was my voice. What saved me was in that moment saying, I need help, right? Humbling myself to say, this is where I'm at and I don't know what to do. Help me get through this situation. So as we go through life and we share our stories, we embrace who we are and we embrace who we've become. And I'd love to share that all of us on this platform, we are three things: the person we were, the person we are today, and the individual that we're about to become. And through doing this and sharing these beautiful parts of ourselves, we don't have to hold on to shame. We don't have to hold on to guilt. We don't have to be embarrassed about our experiences, because somebody once told me, Sam, you're not special. You're not the first person to go through this, right? I have too. And here's how I'm going to help you get through it as well. So, I applaud everybody to think about what your story is and how you can use that as your strength. And you can start small, because even when I didn't have the courage to share to 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, I chose one person to share my story with. And that was my higher power. Second person, also myself. When I can hear an admission being made, if I can share to the world and put it out there, it means I'm no longer holding on to it anymore. So we start small, we frame our stories, we practice if we need to, but we don't actually, because like I said, we own our story. So I'd like to really focus on this beautiful spiritual principle of courage. And I too, once upon a time, said, I'm not ready, you know? My story's too messy. People are going to judge me. No one's going to listen to me. Nobody's been through what I've been through. I'm entitled, you know? People are going to say I was a bad mother. People are going to say that I don't deserve to have the things that I have today. But the power doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being real and authentic. And one of the things that I've learned in life is that it's all about progress and not perfection. How we move forward. And even if we can't see what's in front of us, as long as we can see our 2 feet in front of us, that's all we have to focus on going forward. So I want to ask the collective if we could, to ourselves, say, my story matters, my voice matters, I matter. That today I own my story, I claim my voice, I stand my power. And despite what I've done, despite what I've been through, despite what I've had to endure, I am resilient. I am not too broken. I'm not too young. It's not too late. I am in the process of becoming this butterfly, right? And the most incredible experience that I had with she's not even, I think she's twice my age, but we did this recovery journey together. And she was in a very difficult marriage, a very, very abusive marriage. And together we helped her find her voice in the situation. So she's single, right? She's living her life. Hello. But the point is that's not, it's not that, you know. It's the fact that through finding the courage, you know, to face something that she thought she could never face is probably the biggest win in the story, is that she was able to find her voice, right? Because she matters. She's the most important person in her life. She has boundaries today. And she, instead of saying yes to the world, she decided for the first time in her life that she was going to say yes to herself. So I like that story, and it does for me have the most beautiful and happy ending. And I thought I'd leave everybody with this and say that your story is not
Scarlett,
your
find Charlie a
weakness, it's
step
your
stool.
weapon. Oh, let's do that, Charlie. So our story is not our weakness; it's really our weapon, and I think we need to use it well. And there are so many incredible metaphors that I've come across in my life where, even my partner, soon to be husband, he said to me, "If you could write your story, if you could write a book and publish this book, is it something that you would be proud of? Is it a piece of work and the way you lived your life, something that you would be proud of and that you would want others to read and learn from?" And own it, own who you are and own the journey that you've been. And irrespective of whatever position you find yourself in, whatever chapter in this book you find yourself in, just know that at any given point, we're able to start over. At every given point, we're able to make different decisions, but also to play out the movie and see how our decisions could be the most beautiful, beautiful thing in our lives tomorrow, or maybe not. So, Adora, I would like to leave it there, and I really look forward to sharing more stories and hearing more stories. And it's been such an honor being here today. And I send each and every single one of you lots of love and light. Thank you for having me. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. We can put us in gallery view so we can see everyone. I know Sam is about to go, but before she does, I would like you to just place, if you're not driving, place your hand on your heart and close your eyes for a minute and just feel into what word comes up for you. You know, what word from just sharing space, and put that word in the chat when you're ready. Divine, inspiration, empowered, arrived, peace, gratitude, passion, love, moving, resilience, surrender, vulnerability, love, agape, arise, story matters, authenticity, empowered, persistence, resilience, vulnerability, beautiful, beautiful vulnerability. Yeah. For me, that was encouraged. Female power. Yes. So it was very alive, right? When I say alive, I don't mean just, kids everywhere, chaotic, alive, which is also very alive, confirmation, freedom. But you, Sam, brought us right into, by opening and leading from within, brought us right into a shared space that felt very present, very raw, very real, very connected. And that created an atmosphere of just aliveness, right? For me, because I'm hosting, tasks are going on, I'm reading comments, but my emotions move to the surface, and I just felt very, very present and very present with you. And you can see perseverance. More words have come in the chat. Grace, lighting, and just as you shared these from the beginning, when you said listen for the commonalities, not the differences. And so, you know, we record these and we stream them. So I recommend, if you are feeling really called to rewrite your story or look at it, to sit with it again from the place of how did she allow herself to unfold the story, because there's some genius in there. But it's not necessary because it's your story and there's no need to practice or rehearse, right? But if you want to, healing. So, Sam, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to, we'll definitely have you back. We're looking forward to meeting you personally in Africa. And feel free to stay, but now is the time when we're going to go into networking and have a little mini commercial about what is the Diva Network and how can you join us. Okay. All right. Everybody's giving love. Yay, Sam. Thank you. Fabulous transference, right? Of pulling you and pulling the best out of you purely by sharing her own story that's very unique to her, but through commonalities. We could all see or sense parts of ourself in there. And that's just so fabulous, and a demonstration even of what she said about every story matters, every voice matters. I love the I can do this with you. I loved that because driven leaders often are like, I'm going with or without you. This train is leaving. You know, no one's ain't gonna, but I love the I can do this with you, because really the bigger the vision, the more community is required. And I think even for what is a small vision, right? So okay, so I'd like to welcome, I've been seeing lots of new guests in here. Thank you so much. I'd like to take a moment, 4 minutes, and tell you about the Diva Network and how you can join, if that's okay. Can I get some okays and some welcomes? Yes, thank you for the welcome. And then we're going to go into networking. So Diva Network, Johnny Lloyd said it, the Napoleon Hill leader. We were speaking at the Napoleon Hill Foundation. She said it to me in such, she said, Adora, the Diva Network is more than a community. It's more than a sisterhood. It's like she said, I don't even have the words for it, but it's like where everyone's a leader and we're really helping each other lead and grow. And I'm a better leader because, and I think Ubuntu is another great word from Africa that we learned from our African family. Um, who knows what that means? Put it in the chat. Put in the chat, Melanie. It's really beautiful. Let's see. I want to get it exact. I have it as I am because you are. Isn't that beautiful? You are me and I am you. Yes. Yes. So the Diva Network is our community. It's a community mostly of women, probably about 10% men who support us, including Mad Stuntman, who's saying, I like to move it, and will be with us on our founders trip in September. He wrote a whole song about the divas, but it's a place where we recognize women move differently, right? So before I started working on the TV shows, I was in the self-development space, leading things with Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Dennis Waitley, definitely on my track. There's one of the amazing men who support us in the right-hand corner, Arthur Hopkins. And I had so many open doors by incredible male mentors. But something happened for me when I sat with regularly a bunch of driven, inspiring, visionary, authentic sisters. And we got together in locations, in meetings. What happened is women move differently. Women are multipliers. Look at Mother Earth. You put a seed in the ground and she will give you seeds for years and years and years. She'll give you fruit and seeds and fruit and trees. And that's how we as women are. We're the multiplication when we're in health and collaboration. And so when you get driven women together, not only is everyone dressed better, just it's true. I was gonna say just kidding, but no, really, there is all kinds of beautiful expression and playfulness and empathy. Women use more of their brains in decision making. It's true. They use the left and the right. They use the empathetic and the logical. And I absolutely love my male friends and my male partners, my sons, I adore. And there's a space and a way that women move that the world is crying for, that the world is ready for, that is rippling through our planet and causing an elevation that is so needed by the male and the female. And where this is that space on the outside looking in, someone evaluating our business will say it's a business networking group with very driven people, and all kinds of things happen. Like people get on TV, they get funding, they go on QVC, they get distribution, real estate duns are getting done. But in reality, for me, it's the divine feminine moving through the planet powerfully in collaboration. So I'm just going to pull back the curtain. Tell you, you're not going to see that in our marketing, but that's the real. That's maybe you'll see it later, but that's the truth. And we did it and at the most affordable price that we could. So we went and looked at what do I get in my $25,000 masterminds that I'm so glad I invested in, even the $100,000 masterminds, and how do we make that very affordable? So we created the Diva Network. It's $1,200 roughly a year, a little less. You get to meet virtually up 7, 8 hours a month. So not just this, but privately we meet and you connect, you collaborate, we usher and facilitate. When I say usher, we help facilitate connection, collaboration that is going to collapse time on the vision that you have for your life. We open doors like we just did the II broadcast where we had members. I want you to take 30 seconds, Melanie and Justine, 30 seconds each. Michelle, 30 seconds each. And please, and say what happened for you on the II broadcast because you're part of the Diva Network and we got you on the stage. Yes, Melanie. Unmute. She can't unmute. Justine, 30 seconds. Oh, there's Melanie.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to say this exactly right, but I'm not this quote, but Nelson Mandela said something to the effect of, when we shine our light, we unconsciously give other people the opportunity to share theirs. That is what the II broadcast was.
Yes, she got to speak on stage with Sharon Lecter, Lisa Nichols, Dr. DeMartini, and Shine Her Bright Light, Justine. Yes.
And I have been saying something sort of similar and different, that when you shine your light onto someone else, they magnify it back onto you 1,000 times. And that is what happened on the II network. And I ended up with a picture of myself in a room with Jack Canfield, which only happened for 30 seconds, but there's this laughter and joy. So, and one thing that already came back to me was an email from someone that I met years ago that took my class, that saw me on this broadcast, that said I changed their life. So that already happened. So
yeah, so there were 2,000 people watching live. Our founding members, we put onto a stage where they got to share their story. We prepared them ahead of time. Dennis, not Dennis, that's my mentor. He was there in spirit. 2,200 viewers live. So Sharon Lecter, who wrote Outwitting the Devil and many other books, Lisa Nichols, so many people. And so we have another one coming in December. That is one of the benefits of being a member of our network, is that not only are we going, okay, how do we get you connected? How do we equip you to maximize the connections in the room? But then the connections we have where we can put you on stages as event producers, as, TV producers, how do we open those doors for more of you? And we intentionally create many opportunities, and there are more coming. So we have local meetups, we have other things. If you have questions about what it is to be a member, because there are many benefits. It's kind of like the iPhone, and I just told you you could call someone by looking on FaceTime. I gave you like a few. We have many benefits, but the key is that if you're looking for a home, another home where you can collaborate, connect, and elevate, and not be the only one in the room who is, standing for the planet, but really be supported and in community, then we'd love to have you here. What we're going to do is open the room for networking now. We go until about 15 minutes after. Is that right? JKN, why don't you come up and give them some? JKN is Superwoman behind the Diva Network. Not even behind, she's always here on screen. Yeah.
Hello, my friends. Yes, so we're going to go into networking. You'll be in groups of 4 or 5 people, and you'll have 20 minutes to talk about who you are, what you do. Make sure that you have an ask, and that can be, I want to connect with somebody that is in real estate. Or maybe you're launching a new program and you want somebody just to look at it. Make sure that you are very clear with what your need is for today, and maybe we can make that happen for you. So I'm taking one quick look over here. I need to do some rearranging real quick. You will automatically be taken into your rooms. Okay, these look good. And then you have 20 minutes to make sure everybody gets a chance to share.
And if anyone has questions about being a member of the Diva Network, you just come back to the main room, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions. All right.
Okay, that should be good. Oh, no.